pencil and write down two different things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole idea of the question is that you have to find out that what are the two different things between which L is trying to find out a distinction or L is trying to find out a difference. Yes?
Okay.
Okay. Now we are moving on to the line numbers. So let's talk about the first set of line numbers. That's lines 6 to 11. Let's read this first. So 6 to 11 and see whether we can find out something from here. Okay, 6 to 11. So what do you understand from these lines 6 to 11?
The only thing he talks about how many people are thrown in jail and wrongfully arrested, only to be discharged without being taken to court because they committed no crime and things like that. He talks about how all many different rights of the Americans are being violated and things like that.
And, okay. So what are these lines particularly talking about from 6 to 11?
They're talking about how the government is not giving the proper rights to Americans and things like that.
These two lines. I'm not even talking about this.
Okay.
I'm just talking about these few lines. You know, I have in my possession until no crime. So what are these lines talking about? These lines are saying, see, I have in my possession numerous affidavits establishing the fact that people are being unlawfully arrested, thrown into jail, held so and so, only to be eventually discharged without ever having been taken into court because they have committed no crime. So people who have not committed any sort of crime, people, you know, who are not criminals or people who are innocent, they are being jailed, they are being harassed out of no reason.
Yeah.
Right? This is what we understand. Yes?
Yeah.
So do you find any sort of distinction or differentiation?
No.
Not really. It's not talking about any sort of distinction or differentiation. So you can write down what you understand just beside A. So innocent people are harassed out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find anything corresponding that matches?
No.
I don't think so, because there's no distinction at all.
Yeah.
Moving on to option B, lines 21 to 27. So lines 21 to 27. 21 to 27. Yes, this, I guess this entire para. Okay. What do you understand from this?
Here he talks about how during times of war, citizens have to give up some rights, so which they got during times of peace. But then he also talks about that one of the constitutional forms is not one of the rights that citizens are allowed to give up on.
So is there any distinction?
Yeah, he talks about the rights which can be given up and the rights which cannot be given up during a war.
So if you look at this particular, you know, if you kind of look at this particular part, you will see that it says that I think all men recognize that in time of war, the citizen must surrender some rights for the common good, which he is entitled to enjoy in time of peace. So there are certain rights that you enjoy during times of peace. You can give up on them, or you should give up on them for common good, for the community good during the times of war. But, sir, contradicting linker, the right to control their own government according to constitutional forms is not one of the rights that the citizen. So there are certain rights that you can give up, and there are certain rights that you should not and cannot give up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a distinction between, you know, what are the rights that you should be giving up, or what are the rights that you can give up, and what is the right that you should not or you cannot give up even during the time of war for common good, right?
Yeah.
So please write this understanding that you got. Please write this in your own words, maybe a line or two just beside that choice.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes?
Yeah.
Done. Now let's move on to the options. Look at the options now. So any option that you feel works, any choice that matches with your understanding of these lines?
Option A.
If you see, it says rights that are appropriately and inappropriately sacrificed during war. So there are certain rights that they talk about, and then some rights which cannot be sacrificed, right?
Yeah.
Like the one they said, that government controlled, etc. That part. Okay, let's look for line number C, lines 30 to 31. 30 to 31. Okay, I guess just this much. He must be most watchful of the encroachment of the military upon the civil war. So he must be most watchful of the encroachment of the military upon the civil power. Okay. So, he must be most vigilant, or he must be careful that the military does not encroaches upon, or does not, you can say, intrude into civil power. Civilians, they have certain rights, and military should not be encroaching upon those rights, or military should not be, curbing those rights, or military
Yeah.
should not be threatening those rights during the war, right?
Yeah.
Yes. But this again does not, this specifically talks about that right, that particular right. It doesn't draw a
Yeah.
distinction, right?
Yeah.
Talks particularly about that right, so you can write that.
Okay.
Fine. So do you find any choice that matches? No. The moments
No.
when free speech, no. Just wars and war sought, no. The interests of the nation and the interests of, no, not really. Okay, D, lines 50 to 57. 50 to 57. Okay, 50 to 57, let's see. I am contending. So what do you understand from lines 50 to 57?
Here he's saying that he wants to make sure that the voice of the people are heard, and that the great question, important question about the war will come out. Not only how the war should be prosecuted, but how the conditions may be terminated, and how the rights and honor of this nation and interests of humanity.
See, I'm contending, Mr. President, for the great fundamental right of the sovereign people of this country to make their voice heard and have that voice heeded upon the great questions arising out of this war, including not only how the war shall be prosecuted, but the conditions upon which it may be terminated, with a due regard for the rights and the honor of this nation and the interests of humanity. Again, this part is not drawing a distinction. It is rather talking about the right which should not be given up. Right?
Yeah.
A fundamental right of, how the war shall be prosecuted, and the conditions upon which it may be terminated, in the best interest of the nation and the best interest of humanity. So these are the things which they are mentioning in this particular, in these few lines, and they are not talking about any sort of distinction. Rather, they are talking about a particular right which cannot be sacrificed, which cannot be compromised even during the time of war, right?
Yeah.
Write that they are talking about a right that cannot be sacrificed even during war. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the answer should be 23A and 24B. Just go behind and check.
Okay.
And 24B is what I think should be the answer.
Yeah, 23A, 24B.
So getting it how we are solving these kind of questions?
Yeah.